Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Where Do We Begin? I'm absolutely pumped for you guys to be listening to this one. I'm really excited for you because this is an absolute cracker lined up. My name's Harper. Usually I'll introduce my co-host Jackson in this intro, but sadly it's been almost a week, but he's still feeling a bit down in the dumps after that Barcelona loss to Bayern Munich about 5 days ago. I'm recording this on a Saturday night, just after the Essen Richmond game, actually. Not feeling too good after that. But anyway, Barcelona lost 8-2 to Bayern Munich. He's feeling a bit sad about that one. So not feeling too good. But speaking of not feeling too good and mental health, actually, mental health's a very real issue for many people in society these days, as it always has been. And the stigma, it's getting reduced a lot. It's been reduced a lot in these last few years, but we've still got a long way to go. So Jackson and I have actually, we're doing a fundraiser for it. We're going to be cutting ourselves some mullets on the 1st of September, raising some money for research into mental health. And if you want to hear more about that, make sure you tune in for the rest of the show, because at the end, in our outro, we'll be having a chat about how you can help us out there. But anyway, I'll get into the podcast. A few days ago, we recorded a chat with Matt Shaw. He's an ex-Gold Coast player. He played the 13th most games ever for Gold Coast, more than 102, I think. And Matt, he was the most honest, genuine guy you'll ever hear. He really lifts the lid on some of the things that happened at the Gold Coast. We tried to help him lift the lid, but the jar was just overflowing with all this amazing information, the crazy stories, some sad things happening with him and the club on what should be a very happy day and night, his wedding night. So that's a really interesting story he tells us. And some absolutely great stories from his time at the Gold Coast, 2-game career with Carlton as well. But I think he was a really underrated player. You don't get much spotlight up in the Gold Coast, but he was a really hard-working, a bit of a cliche, but he was an honest player. He'd always give his all. Unfortunately, his career probably didn't pan out the way he wanted it to, but I've got to say, this episode panned out better than we could have ever wished for, because Matt Shaw is, I'm going to put it out there, best episode ever. It's an absolute cracker. So make sure you're tuning in for the whole show. Listen to the end for our fundraiser about mental health. But I'm going on and on and on here, so let's get straight into it. Okay, now I'm really excited for this one. I think it's one of our most recent graduates of the AFL scene. I've got to admit, he was telling me he was in Noosa, I think, the other day. A bit jealous of that in lockdown out here in Victoria. But welcome to the show, Matty Shaw.
G'day, boys. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, mate. So you were born early 1992. How was early life for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Victoria, from a little town called Patterson Lakes. So I started my junior footy down there, doing Auskick pretty much. I started when I was probably under 10s playing juniors. I did 5 years of Auskick down there. And then, I played for Chelsea Seagulls down there. So I think Lee Matthews come from there. Not too many. He's probably the main dude. I think Jaden Addard, who played a few games for Brizzy, come from there. But, I didn't start juniors till about under 10s. And, it was a good place to grow up. Loved it. It was Bayside, so got to go for a few runs down the beach and swims. So, had a good upbringing and good family vibe. Had a holiday house down in Gippsland Lakes, so we'd always cruise down there during school holidays, and, it was good.
And we hear you're big into your surfing now, apparently. Was that a big thing for you in your younger days as well?
Yeah, definitely in my younger days. I had 2 good mates in high school. I probably got into it around year 7. I have a couple of mates, Ben and Jared, down in Melbourne, and his mum used to drive us down to Point Leo after school and stuff. So, that was definitely something I was super keen on as a youngster. Not too. I still surf a lot, but fishing's sort of taken over my pastime up here. So it's sort of hard to juggle. Now I've got the family. I sort of just have to pick one or the other on my weekend. But, into my fishing big time.
And just for the listeners, where are you living now?
I'm back on the Gold Coast. So obviously spent a lot of my life up here, like moved up here when I was 17 to as part of the pre-draft for the Suns. And then, obviously finished up, I forgot what year it was. It was 2017 or something. So it was like 8 or 9 years I spent on the coast. And then I did that year with Carlton. And then, sort of Melbourne life didn't really suit my family very, very well. So we were pretty quick to move back up, drive the family back up and set up back up here, which was probably one of the toughest things I've ever done. Way harder than moving away when I was 17 was finishing my career and moving back up to the Gold Coast and starting a life again outside of the footy bubble up here.
So we will get into that. How was that whole experience of getting picked up by the Gold Coast when you were 17?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. All I can remember back then was like, I obviously played for Dandenong Stingrays and I got scouted by the Vic Country and I played as a 17-year-old. That's when it started getting pretty serious for me. I was sort of just enjoying my footy. I was a bit oblivious to, I knew I wanted to play AFL, but I never thought it would happen. And I was just like, I used to just love footy, like just enjoy it for what it is. And then, every level I seemed to step up, I seemed to be comfortable with. And, I never felt out of my depth or anything. And obviously there was talk that there was the new team starting up. But it all happened super quick. Played a few games in the Vic Country, sort of knew that a couple of the Gold Coast scouts would be watching those games. Didn't feel like I had the best carnival, even though I was a bottom ager playing against 18-year-olds. Obviously they saw some potential there and I was lucky enough for them to go with me. Yeah,
sick. That just would have been, as you said, absolutely surreal experience.
Yep.
But we hear you're big into your cricket as well, big keen cricketer. And we know someone like Alex Keith, he was picked up by the Gold Coast at 17 as well.
Yeah.
But then he chose cricket, then came back to footy.
Yeah.
So, like you said, footy was only on your mind, but a bit before you were 17, was cricket on your mind at all to go into that or no?
Nah, not at all, really. I played a lot of other sports. I was like a bit of an all-rounder as a youngster, but footy was the mainstay during winter down in Melbourne. Played a heap of basketball with Chelsea Gulls as well, they were called. Played a heap of basketball, did a bit of lifesaving, which didn't last long in Melbourne. It was pretty cold. I probably played 2 or 3 seasons of cricket. Was lucky enough to turn up once and take a hat trick and then win a premiership, and I was happy with that.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, so pretty stoked with that. And then gave it away. I actually played with my dad for one season, so we were like in the thirds. So that was good fun. Enjoyed that. Pretty much gave everything a crack as a youngster, but footy always came back to footy, go and have a kick after school, and it was just an obsession really, like always having a kick with my mates at lunchtime, at Morty out at college and stuff. So I don't know, it's just one of those things, I always had a footy in my hand when I was growing up, and that's just how life was, especially growing up in Melbourne in the footy bubble.
So you did mention you moved up to the Gold Coast pretty young, but how was it in your first year when playing in the VFL? So you would fly to Melbourne every second week.
Yeah, no, that was good because obviously my family's in Melbourne, so they got to watch a few of my games. I was pretty skinny back then, so I was playing against men in the VFL, which a lot of us were. So it was a massive step up just in the speed of the game was a little bit of a step up in the VFL, but it was more just the crash and bash of the bodies of the bigger boys. So it was a really good learning curve for me and for a lot of the young players that were up and coming. There was a couple of guys in our team that were built, who had matured a lot earlier, who were built for the VFL, and there was a couple of guys like me, a couple of outside wingers types and small forwards that had a lot of filling out to do. But yeah, really, really enjoyed that VFL year because it wasn't like we just got thrown into the deep end, into the AFL, and we got to sort of gel as a team and see what it was all about. It was a good little progression into the AFL. But yeah, and yeah, obviously moving up as a 17-year-old straight out of school, it was pretty. Oh, we got moved into host family, so it was all right. So it still sort of felt like we had that family vibe, but there was a lot of things that I realised I didn't know how to do, like, for instance, just getting money out of an ATM or, washing my clothes and things like that. Just had to grow up pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm 17 now, and I just couldn't imagine going to move out of home right now, like in school, like going up for footy. It's just, crazy to me. But you talked about the host family there. Were you with another player with that host family?
Yeah, so I started off. I probably stayed at about. I probably moved houses up here during my career probably about 7 times. Just with host families and stuff at the start, and then with players who had then got delisted. But my first player that I met was Brandon Matera. We were living in a place in Ashmore, and walked in and seen little Fishy there, and so it was a welcome sight. And then Dave Swallow moved in with me as well. So a couple good players that are still playing at the moment. And then I only stayed there for a week because then I moved out to the house I was meant to be staying in, which was with Hayden Jolly, and it was just me and him living in Palm Beach, which was good, close to the surf. So I used to wake up pretty early in my early days and go for a paddle before training and stuff, which soon got knocked on the head by the coaches because I was getting a bit run down and smashing myself. But it's all good fun.
Yeah, the Gold Coast is pretty famous down in Victoria, at least for it's the schoolies place, you know. So lots of my mates will probably be going up there end of this year if it wasn't for coronavirus. But did you take advantage of much of their nightlife, all that stuff up there when in your younger days?
Not at all. Like growing up, even in Melbourne, sort of, there was you hear the stories of guys who sort of go down one path or the other path, one path being that party life and the other path being a professional and, saying no to going to all those parties because you might have, footy a couple of days later or whatever, and I sort of took that path. I was sort of footy obsessed. So I wanted to be playing at the best of my ability, and growing up with my parents weren't very big on like drinking alcohol and things like that. So it was never something that I was very interested in. Don't get me wrong, I definitely went out and explored, a few pubs and clubs when I was 18, but to this day, it's not really my scene. going out drinking. I'd rather be waking up fresh and going for a surf or go fishing. But I feel like I've got a pretty good balance with that sort of thing. And yeah, definitely, with me and the boys when we were younger, growing up on the Goldie, when we were playing, definitely there was times where we got together as a group and had drinks and things like that. But yeah, there was nothing ever too over the top for me.
So you did mention when you were in the VFL, you sort of gelled together as a group. How late into preseason or really early did like the Ablets and the Swallows and the Riscatellis all join the group, and was that hard to gel them in?
I think they sort of Gaz sort of come. I can't really remember even back that far of when, but I do remember when they come in, because they've played a lot of games and played seasons of footy before they came to the club. Even Carmichael Hunt, when he came to the club, the boys just try and look up to them. Nathan Bock, Campbell Brown, all those guys. You sort of just look to them for advice and mentors. So they were sort of the ones with the louder voice that were bringing the group together. And then there was the younger leaders who were then feeding off that and then trying to bring that young group together. And yeah, I think it was pretty good. We're all very close at a at that young early stage of the club. And obviously we went through a lot of hard times, tough times where, you've got to have tough conversations when, you're not winning games and things like that. But you just got to take it in your stride and learn from the weeks and the months of games that you play. That's all you can really do, and there's no point getting cut up at each other and things like that, which some people could have easily done, especially from the pressure of the outside of media and things like that.
Yeah, in the first season especially, probably big crash back down to earth from, I guess there was a bit of confidence in the group with all these really talented young players like yourself and Brandon Matera, and you've got the senior guys like Gary Ablett. So was there a really big confidence before you got into the first AFL season?
Yeah, there was definitely confidence there because we had some awesome players playing for us. But it's obviously, it's not really your top 10 players you got to worry about. It's like your bottom 5 or 6 who are going to get you through and win games. And we just didn't really have that depth and that real good, consistency across the board at that early stage. And there was pressure obviously going in week to week, but there wasn't that pressure on winning games early because we were a new team. People didn't really expect us to, go out there and smash every team. But yeah, definitely as the seasons went on, the pressure started to mount, which takes a toll on a young team, I think, personally, like mentally. You might be in the right headspace, but it's hard to tell what your teammates are, type of headspace they're in with getting beaten week in, week out sort of thing. I'm sure a lot of, local clubs can vouch for that, of how it feels, because there's always those teams in every comp that sort of, get beaten up each week. But, yeah, obviously the club's going pretty well now. Like they're pretty competitive at the moment, and I've been watching them pretty closely, so it's good to see them going well.
Debut round 4 against Melbourne at the Gabba. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, that was amazing. One that's still got pretty good memories of. Obviously, Bluey picked me for the team round 4, got left out, obviously, for the first couple rounds, but didn't let that get me down, and went back and played good footy in the reserves and got my opportunity. And, tagged Aaron Davey, which is a pretty big task for your first game. Learnt some pretty good things during the game, and, kicked a goal with my first kick and stuff, which was super exciting. Didn't get a lot of the footy, but, just to be out there, it's a childhood dream, and something that I hold pretty close and will never forget, really.
As one of the players who was picked up earlier than everyone else when you were 17, do you reckon you expected to be in the team round 2, which was your first game of that year, or did you kind of expect just to not be playing for a while like you did in round 4?
You definitely don't expect to, just be playing straight up. It's obviously on how your form is and things like that during the pre-season. But yeah, it's super tough. Like, all these draftees and stuff come in and they think that they've made it straight away, whatever. They've been picked for an AFL team, but really the challenge has only just begun, getting selected to join the team, because then you've got to, you almost once you're being picked for the team, then you're sort of fighting against your teammates for that spot in the 22 for the weekend. And once you sort of make that 22, that's when you come together as a team. You got to have that sort of mentality, that brutal mentality at training that, the guy standing next to you might be your teammate, but he could take your spot. So you got to, fight like cat and dog to try and cement your spot in the team, which is a lot harder to do than what you'd think. There's obviously that top, 10 or 12 players that get selected each week pretty clearly above the rest. But yeah, then the rest are fighting for a spot every day pretty much, trying to show how professional they are, trying to show their physicality at training, during running drills, things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely takes a physical and mental toll over the years.
Yeah, how do you find yourself and maybe some of the other boys, if you know anything about it, how do you find you coped with the whole mental health side of it, or did you struggle to cope with that at all?
I think when I started, it wasn't really something that got looked at or even thought about. Only in the last probably, say 3 to 4 years, it started to creep in. We started doing some meditation and stuff at training and things like that. And then the AFLPAs obviously started stepping in and saying that, one of the worst things in AFL is, or when you get delisted, is, what is it? It's obviously finding a job and then mental health. And I feel like they sort of go hand in hand, but then because you sort of lose your identity when you finish your career. It's a bit of a weird feeling, and they say that it takes about 5 years for you to find your feet once you finish your career. And I think that the AFL and the AFLPA still have a long way to go with mental health within the AFL. My personal belief. I think they're on the right track, but still a lot needs to be done because there's a lot of media pressure and with social media these days as well. It's pretty full on.
Have you got any specific suggestions if the AFLPA is listening to the show?
Obviously, just listen to the players a bit more. The AFLPA, they have helped me a lot But I don't know. I feel like I've got to try and get these words right. But I feel like they can be doing a lot more to be helping players. There's conversations that I've had with them that haven't really sat well with me. And, I've been talking to teammates who are still in the game, who, can still make a change in that aspect to help all players, especially post-career and, post their football career mainly. Because a lot of players struggle when they finish their career, which is pretty sad to see. I know when I first got to Suns, I know it was a start-up team, and it was more focused on the on-field aspect, getting the on-field right, winning games. But I feel like that first, probably 2 or 3 years of my career was a massive, now that I look back on it, a massive loss where I could have been developing my skills for life after football, because the fact, what the stats say, that players really only have a 3 to 4 year career on average, which is not very long. And then once they've finished their career, then who knows what they're doing. Might be a bit easier in Melbourne for the AFL teams because it's a bit more of a bubble, but especially these northern teams, Brisbane and the Gold Coast, where it's not so much an AFL community, people aren't throwing jobs at you. You've got to go out and find them. That's what I've found anyway.
Yeah, people hear about all the superstars like Sean Burgoyne, probably going to play 400 games or something, but you don't hear so much about the people who just getting delisted after 2 or 3 years, which happens like so often. Yeah. And it's just gets pushed under the rug, I guess. But someone like a Paddy Dangerfield or something, because he's in this Melbourne or Victorian bubble that you're speaking about, like you'll probably be seeing him in the media in 10 years when he's retired. But I don't know, have you done too much media stuff post-career?
Not too much media stuff. Like, as you can tell, I'm not the greatest talker in front of the camera. I never really have been throughout my career. I sort of try and shy away from it. I was never really one of the, the Dave Swallow or the Tom Lynch who always got that media spotlight each week. I got a little bit here and there, but I don't really enjoy it that much, to be honest. So I sort of just tried to shy away from it and just go about my thing.
So you did mention the superstars. How big was it to have arguably one of the best players to ever play the game, Gary Ablett, play with you?
Yeah, it's you sort of have to pinch yourself sometimes when you saw him around the club. But super down to earth guy. Would give the time of the day to anyone. It's something that you look back on and you're just super privileged to be able to play with a player of his calibre. Play the amount of games that I did with him. I remember some games, it was just when he was on, it was like the game was standing still and everyone was sort of watching him just do his thing. He'd just like appear out of the stoppage with the ball and snap a goal, and you just like, how the hell did he just do that? You'd sort of, especially as a winger, because I'd sort of be playing that keeper role, that outside position. So I had the best seat in the house to watch the best player in the AFL do his thing. And I was often on the end of the handballs once he won it inside, and it was pretty special. Yeah,
sounds sick, really. But was Gary one of the guys? Did he stay away from the group a bit? Like all the younger guys just really looking up to him. He's just a bit of a god, or was he really, really intertwined with the whole connections in terms of all the other players?
No, he was definitely intertwined, and he was definitely a player you had to seek out for advice, and he would give it to you. But he gave you solid feedback on the field as well. Like I can remember a number of times when I was playing, he'd be it would come to quarter time and you'd run over and he'd explain something to me that he saw in my game and things like that. But Gaz, he's one of those players. He knows what his body needed to do. He didn't have to do what everyone else was doing. So early in my career, like a lot of the training drills and things we'd do, we'd all just do together. Whether you were a ruckman, whether you were a backman, all the running was pretty similar. And then as my career sort of got into its back end, it started to become more specific to your position. If you're a midfielder, you were doing drills that would simulate the game, like agility and repeat effort, tackles, getting beat up. Backmen would be doing, sprint efforts because they've got to be quick off the mark to, chase down their forward and put on a spoil. Half forwards would be getting up and back. Wingers would be doing 300s because they're getting up and back the field. And then Gaz was no different to that. He knew what his body needed to do. So you'd see him doing some pretty alternative things in the gym. A lot of plyometric stuff, explosive stuff, which you saw in his game. He was super explosive. So that's obviously what he was training. And, the more you look back on that, the more you realise he was getting the best out of himself.
Yeah, so talking about that whole development thing in the early years, and you've got like a superstar, Gary Ablett, in his prime at the start of the club, but GWS, they really did it in a different way, and I think it's fair to say they've probably experienced more success than the Suns over the course of the 10 years or so. Yep. Do you have any jealousy towards the Giants in terms of that kind of stuff or no?
I more have I feel like that's what the Suns could have been. I feel like we just didn't. If we had, if you look at the AFL now, the Dion Precious, Josh Caddies, Tom Lynch, all Brandon Matera has gone to Freo, all the players that have dispersed over the years. I'd love to see it if we all got them back together at this moment, what we'd be like, because I feel like we'd be a pretty challenging team to beat. So that's the more disappointing thing, that I feel like the club didn't have the trust or didn't, couldn't keep us all together to be able to. I feel like the club just didn't have that faith in us to be able to get the job done. When I look back at it. And I think the GWS Giants, they haven't lost too many players. They've lost a couple here and there, but the majority of their group they've kept together. And I think that's where their successes come from, because they've just spent years together now and know each other's game inside out, where the Suns, we had some older players that had only maybe a couple years left of their career, and then we lost some younger players to other teams. And it'd be interesting to see what we could have done if the main group could have been kept together.
So do you think that the Gold Coast was sort of like a blueprint to what GWS could improve on in terms of running a club? Do you think that GWS sort of saw where Gold Coast may have gone wrong and gone in a different direction?
Yeah, perhaps. I think they might have. It's hard for me to tell because I'm not really in the, behind the scenes of GWS. But for sure that's something that they probably could have looked at, and they probably could have used us as a bit of a see what we do and see what mistakes we make, and then change. Yeah, now that you say that, it's probably they're in a good position to be able to do that. But, who knows? Only really GWS knows that. I think they sort of, whoever, obviously Kevin Sheedy was coaching them. They just had a bit of a different method to their nerdness that has obviously worked.
Yeah, makes sense now that you think about it, really. But did the players have much of a sense of what was going on at higher up in the club, or was it all purely focused on the on-field matters?
Well, I think a couple of the older players might have had an idea what was going on, but most of the higher up stuff happened behind closed doors, and you can sort of get a little bit of a sense of what's going on around the club, and you hear a bit of talk and things like that, but it's mainly kept behind closed doors. I don't think you ever really know what happens at any club. There's obviously a lot of politics involved with all the footy managers and things like that. So, but yeah, you try not to focus on all that stuff as a player. You just sort of do your thing, recover, play games as to the best of your ability.
So you did mention before all the players leaving. Do you think, from personal experience, was it more them not being happy at the club, or just that lure of playing at a higher level, like Tom Lynch going to play at Richmond to hope for a premiership?
Yeah, I'm not, only they can really say how they felt, but I can definitely understand a player like Tom Lynch and Dion Prestia doing what they've done. It's obviously paid off massively for them. And, for me, even going down to play for Carlton, it's another world down there compared to up here. It's just crazy being down in that, the Melbourne footy bubble. It's so different to up here. I felt like a new draftee when I came down to Melbourne and got picked up by them. But yeah, only they really know if they were unhappy or whether they wanted to just, try another club. But no, I would have loved to have seen everyone, stick together, and who knows what could have happened. Suns could have had 3 premierships on our.
Yeah. Do players chat about leaving the club or moving on to greener pastures, I suppose, in the change rooms or in the group chats or anything like that, or was it all completely private and with the agents?
No, it was super private. You never really heard anything until it sort of came to a head when they were leaving and they had to speak to the group and things like that. But yeah, it's all done by the players' managers behind closed doors, and then the players obviously say goodbye at the death of it.
Yeah, doesn't sound very happy. Sounds a bit sad seeing your mates go all of a sudden.
Yeah.
There you go. Did you ever think about before you got picked up by Carlton, of course, did you ever think about moving on prior to that?
To be honest, yes, I did. It just comes to a point in your career, especially when I was on the fringe, when Rodney Eade sort of come. I was sort of that fringe player for a couple of years, and I didn't really see myself getting opportunities that were. I felt like I was playing good enough footy to be able to, be being selected for senior footy. I was getting, 40 plus touches in the reserves, and obviously it still wasn't good enough for what the coach wanted. So when you have other clubs knocking on your door and saying, "Oh, we're interested in you," you're not getting utilised right up there and things like that. It makes you want to go to a team that wants you. So that's definitely something I thought about.
Who were some of those specific teams, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I had North Melbourne pretty interested, but it's all things that you get fed by your manager. So you don't actually hear it from the horse's mouth. So it's until you put pen to paper, clubs can say as much as they want. And you see it all too often that clubs promise you the world and it doesn't come through, and you get left there looking like an idiot. Like, for instance, Daniel Gorringe openly talks about his experience at the Suns. So that's the sort of thing that can happen.
So we did have a few Goz questions lined up later, but we'll get into that a bit later. You did mention Rodney Eade, and so in your time at the Suns, you had Guy McKenna, who spent years as an assistant coach at Collingwood, first gig as a senior coach, and then was taken over by Rodney Eade, who's one of the longest-serving coaches in history. How was the difference between both of them?
Yeah, they were pretty different coaches, to be honest. I had a really good relationship with Bluey McKenna. All coaches are bloody hard asses. They have to be. They feel a lot of pressure from the media. Bluey McKenna he had really good people skills, which is something I believe in as a coach. You have to have, like, you've got to build a relationship with your players on a personal level before you can start having a crack at them, and you know, because then once you build that personal relationship with a player, then the player's gonna, you know, accept that feedback, and it's almost like a friend talking to a friend because you're trying to improve. So I'm a massive believer in having that sort of mateship with the coach. So Bluey was really good at that. And just some of the things I didn't agree with was the way he went about, you know, team reviews and things like that. They were just pretty old school, you would say. And then Rodney Eade, I didn't really get along with too well. He's a really good person, but me and him just didn't see eye to eye, and there's going to be, no matter what team you look at in the AFL, there's going to be players that say, I don't really see eye to eye with my coach, I don't really get along with him that well. And then there's going to be players that are going to say, I get along with him super well, because we all have different personalities. Rodney Eade wasn't really a people person. He was pretty funny fella, but on the other hand, his reviews and things like that were really good. You'd learn a lot from him. He actually was pretty calm in front of the group. Like, he'd definitely blow up. But, you know, every coach has their blow-ups. And I felt like, in my experience with him, when we got to, you know, half-time, quarter-time and things like that, generally his message was pretty clear to the group, and that's all you need. But yeah, there's going to be things about coaches that you don't like, and things that you like about them also, but that's just part and parcel of the game. But I definitely feel like coaching's taken a swing towards the more people person. You know, the coaches who you know, like you see the Brizzy coach wrapping their arm around their players and hugging them and things like that. You'd never see that in the old days, where I think there's definitely a changeover from that old school coach to the new school coach these days.
Yeah, and as a Bombers fan myself, I think you see John Worsfold on the bench after the draw with the Suns about a week ago. He was like smiling, having a laugh. You would not have seen that even 10 years ago. He was coaching, but he was coaching like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but he's just adapted his style completely.
Exactly, yeah. So he's obviously changed with the times, which is really great to see that he's noticed that swing in coaching. It's not that old school, you know, blast every player for, you know, real hard-ass sort of attitude. It's more that, you know, explain calmly. And I feel like that, you know, when you do have a coach come into a group huddle or whatever, and he's calm, he's relaxed, his messages are getting through to the players because he's speaking clearly, he's not yelling. Because as soon as a coach starts yelling and going off his nut, you can guarantee the players aren't thinking about the message that's being delivered. They're just thinking, oh my God, like he's blasting us, like everyone's sort of, you can feel everyone going to their shell. But when you have a coach that's calm, comes into the group, delivers a strong message to the group, then you just feel that energy in the group, which is what you want from a coach, I feel.
Yeah, well, obviously, I've never played footy at the highest level, but for the sport I have played, the local community sport, stuff like that, it just gives you a much better vibe when, you haven't got a coach just absolutely ripping into you. It's junior sport. It's a bit different, of course, but I guess it's kind of the same with you don't like shout it at, But,
sure.
Yeah, I think Jackson might have had a couple of questions on the Rodney Eade stuff, but you mentioned a few minutes ago that Bluey McKenna, you didn't agree with some of his old school video analysis review stuff. So can you go a bit more into that for us?
Oh, a little bit, yeah. It was more just pointing fingers at players and things like that. It wasn't, I don't think players really got a lot out of the review. They sort of just went into it thinking that they were going to get in trouble for something. But yeah, that's obviously how he went about his reviews, and I didn't know any better until another coach come along and I seen the way he reviewed. So I got to compare. And yeah, that's just what I got out of that.
So yeah, you did mention Goz before. He's said on multiple podcasts that Rocket gave him a few sprays. Did you cop any from Rocket?
I think everyone who plays at the Sun had copped a spray from Rocket. Probably Rocket copped a spray from Rocket. But no, he's just that type of bloke. He's pretty passionate and loves a good spray, like old school spray. They don't call him Rocket Eade for nothing.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Do you think the way he coached and with all the sprays and stuff, did that affect the club culture at all?
No, I don't think so, because I feel like he sort of composed himself in front of the group, but you'd still cop a spray here and there. But yeah, I don't know, it's a hard one. Some player, it just depends what type of player you are, because that's what I'm talking about. You build these personal relationships with a player, all right, Dave Swallow, he can cop a good spray. Sometimes he likes to cop a spray. He responds well to that. So I'm going to spray him if he needs it. Other players might not respond very well to that. So that's where it's, you've got to get to know your players inside and out on a personal level to become an even better coach.
Yeah, after Bluey was dumped, I guess, and Rocket Eade came in, he only played 30 games for the Suns over 3 years, and only for 6 wins. The Suns didn't do too well in those lean years, I guess. But do you reckon, like having sprays left, right, and centre with Rodney Eade coming in, do you reckon that was a massive shock and probably didn't do much good for the team?
I'm not too sure because, as you said, I only played the 30 games under Rocket, and majority of the time he was pretty good, like in a team scenario. I think the main thing why I miss out with him was, I'd go above and beyond to try and improve my game. I think I got sort of scrutinised on my ground ball efforts and tackling, things like that. So I was going over and above, doing hours after training, tackling, after hours, ground balls. And there was improvement in that during my reserves games. edit clips and things like that and show him how I've improved, but it always just was the same answer from Rocket, which was just keep doing your thing, keep practicing. And I think that was just a bit of an easy way out for him, for me, which is when, obviously started looking at interest from other clubs and things like that.
Probably never really came for you at the Suns, but doing all the after training work, all the extra stuff, could you see a light at the end of the tunnel potentially, or was it just doing it because to impress the coach to try to get in?
I felt like I was beating my head up against a brick wall with Rocket. It didn't matter how much extras I did, or how many hours of ground balls I did. I just felt like I was never going to get another chance, sort of thing. So starts to pay a bit of a toll. I started to not enjoy my footy anymore. There was a time where I, even thought about giving it away altogether. But it was not really me to do that. So I just kept battling away, sort of thing. You hear it from other players as well who have been in my exact same position, and there's not much you can really do when that happens.
So you did mention the move and on trying to move. So how did the move to Carlton come about?
So I actually got delisted from the Suns. So it was actually on my wedding day, actually. So I was over in Bali. So, pretty much I got told I was going to get traded from the Suns at my end of year review. So they obviously thought I was someone who might be worthy to another club so they could get a deal, pretty much. So that was just them exploring that avenue. So as my manager, Liam Pickering, did his best to try and get me to another club during that trade. When the trade period finished, I think there was another little period, I forgot what that was called, and then that finished. And then, I was over in Bali on my wedding night and seeing that I got delisted from the Suns. Never really got a phone call or anything to say how, thank you for your 8 years or whatever. I never really heard anything, just seen it on Facebook pretty much that I'd been delisted. And then, so that was on my wedding night. And then a couple of weeks later, I was on my honeymoon and Pickers called me and said, Carlton's interested. They want you to meet and stuff. Lucky enough, come home from my honeymoon and caught up with Sauce and the Carlton coach on the Goldie, and had a chat to them. It went really well. And then I was lucky enough to get picked up as a rookie at Carlton. So then that little journey began.
Yeah, that whole delisting debacle, I guess you could call it, just sounds so sad and just crazy to think about that, really, on your wedding night especially. And I think I was having a look, and I think you've played the 13th most games for the Suns even now.
Yeah.
And just to treat like one of the, like, I guess you could consider yourself a legend of the club, 13 most games, it's a pretty good number. So just appalling to hear, really.
Yeah, and it's it's not only me; it's a lot of players that depart the club. It's pretty brutal, and that's definitely something they need to look at in the future. And I'm super grateful that I didn't finish my career at the Suns. I finished my career at Carlton, and they offered me some great help. Carlton offered me some super help when I finished my career to set up a bit of a plan for my life after footy, which was, awesome.
Yeah, I think just before we get on to the Carlton stuff, do you still hold any resentment towards the Suns at all?
Yeah, definitely. Like, no one likes to be treated the way I did, and the way I know a lot of my mates have been treated who I played with, who come from the Suns. I don't really know what's going on there, but they need to clean up their act with the way they, depart players and even coaches as well. Because it's not really good enough. It's not professional. There's definitely a bit of anger and resentment there, because it feels like, you put your blood, sweat and tears into a team, and then it felt like you were sort of just a number at the end of the day there. Whereas when I finished at Carlton, it felt like you weren't just a number. You're a human. You're a person who's going to be leaving a bit of a legacy and then moving on with the rest of their life. And it felt like they cared about, you not just as a player but as a person to succeed in life after football.
At the point where you did finish up the Suns, how many originals left were there left?
I think there might have been two. I think it was like Tommy Nichols and Spitter, Dave Swallow. I'm pretty sure that was all that was left. And then, I think Spitter's the only one that's left, really.
How tough has it seen all your mates just leave the club one by one, and just heaps every year, just departing?
Yeah, no, it is tough, but it's part of the game also, especially the older players. It's pretty emotional when they leave, actually. It's, because you sort of have such a good relationship with all the players and such good memories and stuff with them. And you go through some super tough sessions with them, which you build that personal relationship with them. I think that's the joy of footy as well, joy of team sports. That, you ride the bumps together.
Yeah, just a couple more. We've actually got some fan comments and questions from some Suns fans.
Fans.
Sandy, it says, it's just a comment. Hi, Maddie. Miss watching you play. So cheers for that, Sandy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you appreciate that heaps, Matt.
Sandy.
So thank you, Sandy, for that. And one from Mark as well. How did it feel wearing the green vest in a lot of games when you should have been mainstay?
The way I see it, wearing the green vest was a lot better than copping the red vest. That was a bit of a weird time. I think Lukey Russell copped a lot of the green and red vest, from what I remember. And, made his opinion pretty clear to the group that he hated it. But, I'm glad that green vest is gone, hey, because
shocking.
It really puts on show who's not playing next week, pretty much.
Doesn't add anything to the game, really. Like,
no.
It just takes away another rotation on the bench, I reckon.
Yeah.
Fans hate it. Obviously, the players hate it.
Yeah, it didn't really get used for what it was meant to be used for, which was for if someone suffered a serious injury. It sort of got used strategically for a pretty explosive player to come on and have a massive impact if no one did get injured, sort of thing. And then, unlucky for me and some other players, we were that sort of player that fitted the bill. But, hey, I'd rather be wearing the green vest than sitting on the sideline as well. So I was lucky enough to play a few games.
Just before we get into our famous last segment, the quiz, can you tell us a bit about your 2-game Carlton career, what that whole experience was like?
Yeah, I was obviously super grateful for Carlton picking me up, and obviously got to play. I think I played a Friday night game against St Kilda and played against the Hawks as well. Just the whole atmosphere down in Melbourne, because you're playing with 2 Melbourne teams, the Saints and the Hawks. the crowd and the energy is just, it was so different compared to the Suns, because a lot of the time, even when we were having a home game at the Suns, it felt like you were playing a bit of an away game. But yeah, just to put on that Guernsey is something super special, because the club has so much history. I think like obviously one of the big four clubs alongside Essendon, Richmond, and who else is there? Obviously the big four clubs, and then
Jackson's Magpies, I think.
the Maggies, of course. That buddy at the Lexus Centre over there. They've got it all sorted over there. But it's a bit surreal, and a lot of my family growing up, I supported St Kilda, and then a lot of my mum's side of the family barracked for Carlton. And my grandfather, who had passed away, barracked for Carlton, so he would have been super proud that I got to play a few games for him.
Yeah, just great to hear. Ending on a much more positive note than probably, I think it's fair to say, probably the majority of your career at the Suns went. But Jackson, have you got anything else for Matt before we get into the quiz?
No, let's just go into it.
All right, Matt, I doubt you've listened to the show before, but we've got a little last segment that we like to do. So I'm going to host a quiz. It's going to be you up against Jackson. So we've got 5 questions. Jackson has been on an absolutely shocking run recently. I don't think he's beaten a guest for months. I reckon it's been at least 10
hours. How's he dead? Because I'm shocking at quizzes. And I haven't paid much attention to footy at all.
Oh, mate, it's not a footy quiz. It's got a bit about footy, but it's got some wacky stuff in there. We like to keep it a bit related to your career. So very, very vaguely related. So it's not when were you born or something like that. But I guess we'll just go straight into it. So
hopefully I'd get that.
So, question 1. Obviously, your name's Matt. And, actually, by the way, you'd think Matt Shaw would be a pretty common name, but I was having a look at your Wikipedia page. There's not a single other Matt Shaw Wikipedia page, which was weird. But there you go. No other famous Matt Shaws, even though it's a pretty common name. But anyway, Matt Preston, another Matt. So, a question about Matt Preston. Matt Preston's Speedy Spaghetti Bolognese from Delicious Magazine and website has 17 ingredients. So I'm going to go between you two. You're going to name one each, one by one. Whoever gets one wrong first is going to lose the point. The other person gets the point. Who wants to go first?
You go first, Jackson.
Jackson? Go first.
So wait, what was it again? What was the actual recipe?
Speedy Spaghetti Bolognese. You can prepare and cook it in only 15 minutes.
All right. Obviously, tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Oh, yeah. Tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes. I'll give it to
you. Spaghetti.
Yep, spaghetti is correct.
Beef mince.
Beef mince. Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, it is there. Couldn't say it is there. It's a long list. It's hard to read. Matt, got anything more?
I'm going to say...
Be the most basic of ingredients. Can be
anything.
Oregano. Bit of a punt. Oregano is incorrect.
Well, it's obviously not the best spaghetti bolognese, isn't it?
Yeah. What's your recipe?
It obviously has oregano in it.
Yeah. I love a bit of oregano. So, for those interested in Matt Preston's Speedy Spaghetti Bolognese, you got spaghetti, olive oil, star anise, never heard of that, onion, garlic, anchovies, beef mince, celery stalk and carrot, streaky bacon, beef stock cubes, soy sauce, apple cider vinegar, tomato paste, port, cherry tomatoes, lemon juice, and parmesan. So there you go. Jackson's 1-0 up. But
how about the anchovies in a spag bowl? What?
Unusual.
How can you call that spaghetti bolognese?
Anchovies are not great at the best of times, but chucking them in a delicious dish like a spag bowl, it's an atrocity.
Sure.
So Jackson's in the lead, but that usually tends to not last too long. So we'll go to question 2. So I did a question about your first name before, Matt, obviously. Now I've got a question about shores, but not shore like the last name. It's shore, the beach shore. So the Ballantine scale, Hayden Ballantine, our former guest, of course, the Ballantine scale was devised in 1961 to measure the degree of exposure level of wave action on a rocky shore. The initials A, C, remember these letters, the initials A, C, F, O, R, and N are used to describe abundance of certain species in the scale. Name what 2 of these initials stand for. Just they're relating to abundance and how much of the certain species there are on the rocks.
Oh,
I don't live near a beach, Harper, so I've got no clue, mate.
my mind's blown.
He did say it'd be wacky.
Yeah, it is a bit wacky. I don't really know what other clue I can give, but they're all, so it's A, C, F, O, R, and N, and they're all relating to, they're all terms about rarity and how common things are. Do you want to have a go, or should I just move on?
I'd have no idea, mate.
I got no clue,
Okay,
mate.
I'll tell you. It's abundant, common, frequent, occasional, rare, and absent, or none. The absent is the N. But there you go. But I thought you might have got one of those. I tried to make the Ballantine scale. There was a big document.
I've never heard of that before.
It's got like a tiny little Wikipedia page. The only other thing on the internet is this big thing by Mr. Ballantine. He's written up for some university. So I had a little read through that and couldn't find a great question. But there you go. All right, so question 3. Jackson, still 1-0 up. So you into your soccer, Matt?
Not really.
Well, maybe you've heard of Neymar. Have you heard of Neymar?
Yeah, I've heard of Neymar.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So closest to the pin, this one. So just buzz in with your name and it's closest to the pin. So Neymar has got the exact same birthday as you, 5th of February, 1992. So in August 2017, PSG broke the record for the most expensive football transfer of all time, buying Neymar from Real Madrid. In euros, what was the fee? So €1 is $1.65. What was the fee?
Jackson. Also, it was from Barcelona, not Real Madrid.
Oh, why must I?
Oh, so he's all over
I've
it.
mistyped it. Oh,
I'm gonna say 222 million euros.
222 million is exactly right.
Oh, he's all over
So
it.
I call myself a bit of a soccer expert, but I've written in Real Madrid instead of Barcelona. That's atrocious, really.
And he still got it right. He corrected you and still got it right.
Jackson might have to take
Jackson
over
should be the
Chris
host.
Master. Anyway, question 4. We'll pump through it. It's been a long one. So this is the second last question. So Matt, try to get this one. So your initials MS, of course. MS stands for milliseconds. How many milliseconds are in a minute? I'll need a precise answer.
1,000?
1,000?
I have no idea.
1,000 is incorrect. Jackson, do you want to have a go?
100,000.
600,000.
Oh, it's 60,000. So there's 1,000 in a second and there's 60 seconds in a minute. So
Yeah.
60,000. But our last question, the famous "Who am I?" question. So Matt, you can get back into it with this one. So it's we're going to go from 5 points with a series of clues all the way down to 1 point. And once you buzz in and get it wrong, you can't buzz in again until the other person gets it wrong. So for 5 points, I was born on the 21st of July 1988 in Finley, New South Wales. Bit tough. Might just move it on straight away. Anyone want to have a go or not?
No.
All right, for 4 points. I'm most known for my AFL career, during which I've used my 198 centimetre height to great effect. Born in 88 in country New South Wales. 198 centimetres, footy player. But I'll move it on because you don't look very hopeful, either of you. 3 points. Taken at pick 41 in the 2006 National Draft. I've played the 14th most games in the history of a Victorian club. Should I move it on? Okay, I'll move it on. Matt, you have to get it here at the 2-pointer to win it. But if you get it at the 1 point, we'll go to a tie break. But Jackson could get it there. So for 2 points. For 2 points.
I thought I was 2-0 up.
You're 2-0 up. Of course you are. Oh, got the name on one. Jesus, this is an atrocious performance for me as host. So I might have to cut some of this out. For 2 points. I'm currently trying to make 2020 the 9th consecutive season in which I've been the leading goal kicker of the club I've won 2 premierships with. So he's been leading goal kicker 8 seasons in a row before this season. And he's won 2 premierships with this club. And he's still playing. Matt, do you want to have a crack?
So he's obviously a forward.
He is a forward.
Oh, I've got no idea.
Do you want to just have a stab in the dark? 198 centimetre forward. Victorian club, 1 club player. Played lots of games. Country boy.
From New South Wales.
From country New South Wales.
I think I've got it.
He's looked on his phone. Cheater.
I haven't. My phone's over there. Not
Controversy. Phone. Might have to be disqualified.
But is it
review?
Is it Tom Hawkins?
Let's see. Is it Tom Hawkins? Tom Hawkins is correct.
Yes.
He's won it.
Thank God.
He's back to form. Back to form.
I'm all about building confidence here.
Thank you,
Jackson
Matt. Really
is
appreciate
the
it,
worst
mate.
quizzer in quizzing history, and you've lost to it. It's shambolic, really. Right. But it's been a long episode, so I think we should wrap it up there. So big thanks to you, Matt Shaw, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've been great.
Cheers, boys. It was a bit of fun.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks.
Guys, what did I tell you? I promised you it would be an absolute cracker of an episode, and I've got to say, I think my promise came true. Feel free to let me know if it didn't, but how good was that episode? It was Matt Shaw, an absolute legend. Really, in this outro, I'd love to recap and reminisce about that episode until the cows come home. But unfortunately, it's been a long one already. So I'm going to chat to you about a few things, some normal outro topics. But I promised you I'd speak about the mental health fundraiser that Jackson and I are doing. So if you tuned into WDWB Extra number 3, the episode the other day with Darcy Radford and a few other guests, he's doing a fundraiser, Mullets for Mental Health, thanks to the Black Dog Institute. It's a great cause because we all know mental health, sadly, but truthfully, it's really an issue that impacts so many people in our society, because especially during this whole coronavirus lockdown part 2, if you're in Victoria, it's just a horrible, horrible thing for anyone to go through or any of your loved ones to go through. So he's going to be cutting himself a mullet for mental health fundraiser, mental health research, amazing funds for mental health research. How good is that? And Jackson and I got a bit inspired. So we're just going to copy his idea, really. We're doing our own mullets for mental health. So on September the 1st, I've got a pretty luscious locks of hair going out at the moment. I haven't cut it for a while. So on September the 1st, Jackson and I, we're going to be trimming off the top a bit and shaving off a bit of the sides. And we're going to be getting our very own mullets. And I tell you what, if I couldn't look anything like Big Sammy Draper, he's an absolute god amongst men, that guy, isn't he? Jeez, Sammy Draper. If you're listening, mate, big shout out to you. Love your work. If I could look anything like you, mate, I'd be very, very happy with myself because you've got a cracking mullet. So we're we're doing our own mullets for mental health. And we're aiming big, actually. We're trying to raise $1,000 before September 1st. It's a big ask, but I know if just 1% of the MCG, 1,000 people donated $1 each, we'd make it to $1,000. And it's really, every cent matters. If you can donate $1 or if you can donate 100, like David Monks actually donated $100 to the cause. So big shout out to him. That would be much appreciated. But we know lots of people are struggling this time with finances, job losses, all that kind of stuff. So if you can't donate, just give some posts in our social media or share, get the word out there and just spread love to your mates. You know, people need support in times like this, and just sharing love and offering support to your mates is just, or anyone really, is just so, so important. But if you can donate, we'd massively, massively appreciate it. So if you want to check out how to donate, check out our social medias, which I'll mention at the end of the show, or you can go to the website. I'll tell you that website now. It's bit.ly/WDWB, all in caps, mullets, for the number 4, mental health. So just again, that is bit.ly/capital W, capital D, capital W, capital B, mullets, all in lowercase, number 4, mental health, all in lowercase. So you can donate your money there, or you can even join up our mullet team. We're aiming to raise $1,000, and if you could donate 50 cents or $1,000 yourself, if you're absolutely stacked, go for it. We'd love it. So we'd hugely appreciate that. And I think we should give a big shout out to our socials, because there you can have a look at what some of the intricacies of what we're doing, and you can get all the links there. So on Twitter and Instagram, we're at WDWBpod. That is WDWBpod. And on Facebook, we're at Where Do We Begin? That's, if you want the link, it's facebook.com/WDWBpod. And yeah, we've got some good content up on our socials at the moment. So go check those out, and of course, check out the links for the fundraiser. We'd be hugely appreciative of it again. But we've actually had a few Patreon members during the week. So I've got to give a big shout out to them, actually. If you want to join up, by the way, help support us on our little podcasting adventure, our little journey, you can just go to patreon.com/ you guessed it, WDWB pod. They are a bloody good combination of letters, the WDWB pod. So go check that out. You can sign up for as little as $3 a month. Absolute bargain for some of the benefits you get, which you can all see there. But big shout out to our 2 new Patreon members. So in the rookie tier, the $3 tier, we've got Mr. Dean Eddy. So big round of applause for you, Dean Eddy. Great work. Thank you very much, mate. We're hugely appreciative of it, because we're just a couple of amateurs, and any coin that we can make out of this, we hugely, hugely appreciate. And in the club legend tier, someone's donating $10 a month, and they go by the name of Owl Messi. So I presume that's you, Lionel. If you're listening from Catalonia, out in Barcelona, in your big mansion out there, big shout out to you, mate. I love your work. If you ever want to jump on the podcast, just come on. That's Al Messi. He's signed up for the $10 Club Legend tier. And if you want to do that, you can go to patreon.com/WDWBpod. Help us out. It would be hugely, hugely appreciated. But if you want to divert your money to an even more worthy cause, of course, look at our fundraiser on all our socials, or the link I gave before. But this podcast has been a really long one. We're going to play some music, actually, at the end of this one. But just before we do, just before I have a chat about that with you guys, I'd just like to ask you to share the pod around, because the bigger the audience, the better content we can produce. And make sure you give us a 5-star review on iTunes, and tell all your mates about us on all the socials, or get in touch with them in real life if you're outside the lovely state of Victoria. We're on all your favourite podcast apps. But, oh, geez, I'm rambling on today, aren't I? But anyway, I'll chat about our music today. So, Sarah Lockie and Jamie, they form a three-piece pop punk band based in Melbourne. I don't think they're doing many gigs at the moment, so all the more reason for us to help them out with a little play on our show. They've got a really early 2000s kind of throwback sound, like a Taking Back Sunday, I think. If you know those guys, they're very similar to them, actually. But anyway, so Jamie, Lockie, Lachlan, and Sarah. Sarah on the drums, Jamie on the bass, and Lachlan on the vocals and the lead guitar. They've got a new single for the band's called Analog Hope, actually. Big shout out to them. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram, Analog Hope. They've got a fairly new track called Said It Once Again. And I think this podcast has been a bloody long one. So let's get into this poppy, punky, absolutely wonderful track called Said It Once Again. And thanks for listening. Tune in next week.
You don't need me. I hope you know that you don't need me. And I can't stop living, but I'm scared of life. I need you, but I can't be with you. I'm fucking up our life. Can't stop living, but I'm scared of life. I need you, but I can't be with you. I'm fucking up our life.